I remember the sun beating down on the Florida highway as I stood there, thumb out, hoping for a ride. I'd run away from home, seeking freedom, adventure, anything to escape the confines of my life. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and with each passing car, hope flickered and faded. My name is Joshan Ashbrook. When I met Philip Parton that fateful day hitchhiking, and I share what he did to me, you will never look at strangers on the road the same way again. A beat-up pickup truck slowed down and pulled over. The driver, a man in his late 30s with a scruffy beard and piercing eyes, leaned over and asked if I needed a lift. I hesitated for a moment, but then nodded, climbing into the passenger seat. He introduced himself as Philip. At first, the ride was uneventful. We made small talk, where I was from, where I was headed. He seemed friendly, even offered me a soda from his cooler. But as the miles passed, his demeanor shifted. His questions became more personal, invasive. He started talking about things that made me uncomfortable, his tone turning darker. At one point, I remember asking him to let me out, but he just laughed, locking the doors. Panic set in as I realized I was trapped. He took a detour off the main road, driving into a secluded wooded area. I begged him to let me go, but he ignored my pleas. We drove in silence for a while until he started asking strange questions. "You got family?" he asked without looking at me. I told him vaguely that I had a sister back home. He smirked, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. "She gonna miss you." The way he said it made my skin crawl. I tried to laugh it off and change the subject, but he kept steering the conversation back to personal stuff. Where I slept, if I had a boyfriend, whether anyone knew where I was. Then with a sudden snap, he hit the door lock beside him. Click. "Safety first," he said, grinning. That was the first moment I felt real, cold fear settle into my bones. We drove down several dirt back roads with nothing around, no houses, no life at all. At one point, he stopped the truck, turned to me with a sinister grin, and said, "This is where the fun begins." I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. He lunged at me and I fought back with all my strength, scratching and kicking. But he was too strong. The next moments were a blur of pain and terror. He struck me repeatedly, his fists landing blow after blow. I screamed, hoping someone would hear, but we were too far from anyone who could help. Eventually, everything went black. I don't remember dying, but I remember floating above my body, watching as he dragged me out of the truck and into the woods. He left me there, discarded like trash. Days later, hikers would find my body, leading to an investigation that would eventually bring him to justice. Philip Parton was arrested, tried, and convicted for my murder. He was sentenced to death, I guess some small consolation for the life he took. My story ends here, and by the time you hear this haunting story of mine, I will be dust and wind. Nothing more. No thoughts, no heartbeat, no life. I hope that by sharing my story here, you will think twice before getting into a stranger's car. Hitchhiking can seem like a cheap way to get around, but there is always a huge risk with it. And that risk, at least where my life was concerned, led to brutal murder. I was just a teenager looking for freedom, not realizing the dangers that lurked on the open road. My life was cut short, my dreams unfulfilled. But if my story can keep you from a similar fate, then perhaps my death won't have been in vain. Even if my story causes you to have second thoughts before getting in a stranger's vehicle and you pass on the ride, my story will have served its purpose. I wish someone had warned me beforehand or kept me from getting in that truck. If they had, maybe I would still be here today telling you this story in person.